Alright, so here we are back for the third video, which is all about penciling. But I'm also going to show you some tools that are going to help you pencil really cool, create some really cool drawings, and basically help you create cooler art. You know, your characters, for example, you want to make sure that they look nice, that the anatomy is correct, and that your perspective is right. So Clip Studio Paint has some really awesome tools for that. So let's quickly dive into it. I'm going to just use one example. In this case, we're going to look at the first panel. So panel number one, as chosen here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to name this layer pencils because that's basically where my pencils are going to be. And what I'm going to do, so we're looking at Detective Logan that's running. He's running away from the camera into the distance. Now, I can either try to draw this just like this, or I can use this awesome tool that Clip Studio Paint has. So for that, we're going to go to the Material menu, and if you don't have it in your thingy, you can go here, Windows, where was it? Somewhere here you have yeah, materials. There you go. So you go to materials, and then you got your different type of materials. The ones that I'm looking for in particular is a body type. So we select that. Once you're in there, you take a male because it's a male that we're talking about. Detective Logan is a guy still. So you just drag it into the frame. And that's the cool thing about it. It also stays inside the frame. So if you notice here, it cuts off right there. So that's a 3D object, but that's only one thing. Now we need to look for a pose. So for that, we're going into body type, pose, get your entire body, and here you have a awesome library of all kinds of poses. Now I'm looking for a running pose. Now there is a running right front, but it looks still a bit too kind. I need a more athletic run, and that's the cool thing because they have it here as well somewhere. There you go, the dead run. So all I have to do is just drag and drop it onto the character, and boom. Now you can't see it straight away, but we're going to start zooming in on this so that you can really start getting my point. Let's see. To do that, I'm quickly just going to select the panel first, and then zoom in a bit closer so that it becomes all a bit more clear. Right, so we're going to go back into our 3D object. There you go. So you see all these menus here at the top. I hope it's visible in this video. You got some menus here as well. Now what we're going to do is we're going to modify the camera so that it looks like he's really running away from us. So with this first button, you can just click on it and then rotate the camera to the direction that you need. Now you can also see this floor at the bottom. That basically dictates where your floor is. So what I've understood, or the way I understand it, is it's always best to just, you know, get your floor right, because once you get your floor in the right place and your perspective more or less, then you can start really playing around with your gaining your perspective lines better and your character. So in this case, the camera is supposed to be a bit to the side, so I'm going to zoom in a bit. Yeah, so I have a bit more of Detective Logan here, and bring it up a bit. Right now, also this very cool thing when you're working in 3D in this program, feel free to get the subtool detail window open. This is really cool because you can modify so many different things here. So I'm going to go to allocate, and that's to change the position of your character. So say you want to really do precision rotating, right? So then I can just go in here and say, I want the character to move forward a little bit more. I want him to have that sense of, like, just kind of like this maybe. On the z-axis, I want him to be a bit, to the side, maybe not, maybe more like this. See, you can really play around until you get the the position that you really want. Now, don't forget, this, can be a bit intensive on your computer. It's calculating a lot of 3D, all your file, and, it's all there. So if you have a powerful computer, no problem. But, if you've got an old machine, just keep it in mind that it might go a bit slower, but it still works. It's still absolutely awesome. Right, so we're going to continue modifying this a little bit. This rotation doesn't need to happen a lot. And what I'm going to do, that's another really cool feature, is that you can modify the actual body parts themselves. So if you want it to be a bit more, dynamic or a bit different to what you're looking for, you can move the body parts yourself, as I'm doing right here. So I'm doing it slowly, very slowly, so that's why the movements are a bit aggressive, but that's okay. We can live with that. I want this leg to be a bit more stretched out, like that maybe, and I would like this to maybe move forward a bit more. Or maybe I can do this. Okay, so here more or less you have, in simple words, a bit of your thing. You can also rotate the individual parts, which is really cool. So every body part you can modify and rotate. It is extremely, extremely useful. It goes very far. So you highlight a particular section, and then you can do all sorts of stuff with it. You can rotate it. You can, scale it. Even if you wanted to change the body size, you can. I think it was here. Yeah, when you click here, for example, you can make your character thicker, so you have a more overweight guy. You can make the guy look more like a kid, and then it goes here, skinnier body and a bigger head. You can make him slim, you can go more sensual. For men, I assume it's more like muscle and stuff like that. For women, the chest area starts to grow a bit more, you got more curvature and all that type of stuff. So just useful for you to know that it's there. I'm just going to keep it standard in the middle. And then let's see, once that's done, another thing that I really like to do is turn on the light. So here you have in the tool property, you can go to light source and turn it on. Now what that does is, so once it's on, you see that there is a lighting here. I'll go to light source on my subtool detail, and here I can change the location of the light. When I change the location of the light, bear with me a little bit, it takes a little bit of time, but as you can see, it's starting to shift a bit, and it shows you more or less where the light is coming from. So what I'm going to do also to make it a bit easier now is I'm going to remove the layout and only have the 3D object in front of me. So what I want here, for example, is maybe some lighting, something similar to this maybe. The lighting comes from the top, more or less. And you can use this little ball as a reference for this. Now, if you also want to double check, because here it looks like, just a 3D object, but if you want to double check, like as in a comic book, you just go to your layer property effect and turn this one on, the display decrease color. So that looks much more like a comic book type of look. And here you can also move the light simultaneously. It goes a little bit slower, but still gets really cool effects. I like to work like this. It just creates really fun effects. And here I can kind of say like, okay, I want the lighting more or less like this. I want some shading on the leg. I want some more or less, until you get it right, basically. So in my case would be maybe something like this. I could change it later on again. But yeah, and if I were to now bring out the thingy, so I more or less end up something like this. And again, I can modify all these things on the fly. So if I say, no, I want, Detective Logan to be a bit more here, and I still want him to be a bit bigger in the panel, no worries, you can still do that. Do it slowly, to create better effect or something. So there you go, that's one, and maybe I can move it up again. And with this, I actually prefer moving the camera versus the object, because then the object stays on the floor, which is basically what you want. So there you go. So that's a very quick look into how to use the 3D application, the references, this 3D library that Clip Studio Paint has. If I were to zoom out now, you can see it like this again. And if I go here, so it kind of looks like a really fun little line drawing that's ready for you to use as a reference. And I think it's super useful, especially with the lighting. All these fun little things, they're really what set this software apart from, for example, Photoshop. You could never do this in Photoshop or any other app out there. And you can always switch back. You can. I like this because it gives a quick idea. And if it gets too heavy on your memory, on your computer, you can always rasterize the layer. You just go here but you have to be 100% sure that this is what you want to do. That you're really comfortable with it, and you rasterize it, and then it becomes just a single image that you can no longer work with. So you can no longer modify it anymore. Now when you just move it around, it will still stay within your panel, but you can no longer work with it. But it's also lighter to work with now. So that's that. Let me undo that because I might want to modify a couple things later on again. And that's one. Then the second thing for this is the perspective tools. That is really, really fun as well. So for that, we're also going to zoom in quickly, like so. I'm going to stay in panel 1. So again, this is my panel 1. Inside panel 1, I'm going to go to Layer, and I'm going to create, where is it, a ruler frame. And I'm going to go to Create Perspective Ruler. Right, so you click on that, and then you've got an option. You can create either a 1-point perspective, 2-point perspective, or 3-point perspective. In this case, I only need 1-point perspective, so I'm going to select OK. Now, let's see if this is inside my panel 1. If it's not, no worries. I just drag it in, make sure that it's inside panel 1, because then when I move it around, that perspective guide basically goes with it. Alright, so here, how does it work? There's a whole bunch of, I don't know if you'll see this well in the video, I'm hoping, but it basically works with all these handles, right? So this, what I'm moving here, is my horizon line. My horizon line is low, and I have another handle here to, where was it? There's this other one where I can, yeah, there you go. And I can modify it a little bit. Now, the camera was tilted a bit in this panel, right? So I move it, kind of like, we could maybe say that this is the horizon line. I really hope you see this in the video. And then these handles are there just to be used as guides to give you an idea of okay, your perspective will go more or less like this. And this is your vanishing point. That blue one is your vanishing point. This is where all the lines are going to go to. So I think for this scene, more or less, this is what makes sense. Move this about a bit. There you go. Alright, now another very important thing about your perspective ruler though is that you have to pay attention to these little colors here. So all these lines have colors, right? So they're green right now. Now you can change them to purple, or at least that's what I've noticed, that when you click on them, their color does make a difference. So when they are like this thin color purple, and this one as well, that means that they're all active, and you will be able to draw perspective lines in these directions. If you put one in green, then it will ignore all the lines vertically. At least that's how I understood it. I'm quickly going to go to pencils, press P twice to get to the pencil. If now I were to try to create straight lines, see, it doesn't allow me to create, well, there just because it's gone that way, but here I can do everything except for the, and even like when I try to draw lines that go diagonal or perpendicular with the floor, they just don't happen. So just important to remember when you go into your perspective ruler, so here you go back to your perspective ruler, go to your operation object so that you can select the things, and make sure that it is all selected, including this one. I'll have a quick look and see if this is now active. So if I were to go back to my pencils and press P for pen and then P for pencil again, so now I can do a straight line down, diagonal line towards the vanishing point, and one that is perpendicular to the horizon line. Okay, so very important. Now, as you've seen here, it all works now. So, these lines will all go towards the center point automatically. Yeah, everything will cross there. This line as well. And you can also do your straight lines to create your perspective. As you can see here, all your straight lines, they will go straight. And you can also do this. Okay, so I hope that this gives you an idea of how the perspective lines work. It is extremely useful and definitely recommend it. When you want to stop using them, see, because you have to also have this button here selected, right? Snap to special ruler, right here. If you do not select that, then basically as soon as you start drawing, see, I can now draw freely on there. So, food for thought. Always make sure that it is snapped to the ruler, or another way is just to remove the actual eye, and then your perspective lines are no longer there. Right, let's move on to the other panels. Alright, now also another thing that might be worth looking at. I just realized that I used the wrong perspective ruler. And this can always be verified when you go to your subtool detail. In this case, for example, when you highlight your ruler here, you can go to perspective ruler on your subtool detail, and then, for example, when you look at the floor, so hopefully it's visible, you can make your grid size bigger, smaller, but it gives an idea of how the floor will be laid out. Now, obviously, this is not the right angle I need for this plaza. So you can always verify like that by just clicking these extra planes here on each side. It gives you a very good idea of what you need. So in this case, I'm just going to delete this layer and I'm going to do it again. But it's useful for you to know that. So in this case, actually what I needed to do was go to layer, ruler frame, create perspective ruler, and actually a 1-point perspective would have done the job just fine. So more something like with a horizon level, maybe even here. This doesn't really matter, it's just to try things out a bit, or maybe a bit further to get that, yeah, still something like that. Maybe here, yeah, maybe I do want the horizon line here. Something similar to that. Now here, to verify it, I can always just go onto the perspective ruler and, here check at how it balances out with the floor, and if it kind of, comes across with what I'm looking for. So like in 3D, you can always see this in 3D applications. So here you can do the same basically, just to get a bit of an idea of like, oh, okay, yeah, this is what I am looking for. Alright, so now with all the perspective lines, the guides, they're all ready for every individual panel. So we have it all set up. All the 3D models that I'm using as reference are all in place. Now I can actually start doing the real work and getting to the penciling part. So, and you'll see the penciling will go a whole lot faster now with these things in place, and it will look a whole lot better. So this particular phase might have taken extra time, but it's such a time saver in the long run because you'll get to draw the things a whole lot better, faster, everything is ready for the penciling phase. Okay, let's get started. Okay, and so I thought this would be a great time to showcase why it was so important for me to use a solution like Astropad to create this comic book page. Drawing onto a screen that you can see makes a world of a difference when it comes to creating comics, especially when you're talking about inking or penciling that requires real precision work. And I was so happy that Astropad had a solution for this, and at such an affordable price. So, definitely food for thought for you guys out there. You want to make a fun looking comic book page and want it to look professional, think Astropad. Definitely worth it. And all right, so that basically concludes our penciling stage. The pencils look just about good enough to start inking. Now, don't forget things might change down the road, but that's just the way it goes. At least we have a solid base to kick off the next stage, which is inking.